Well, hello everyone. Matt Rowe here for another Zwift podcast. It's the first one after the Worlds. So good to have Kristin and Greg back for today. How are you guys?
I'm doing great. Yeah, thanks. It's just coming off a big week, just following the World Championships. And, it's kind of like following big bike races from home. You just kind of sometimes don't know what to do with yourself after the big week of hype. So, yeah, everything's good.
Yeah, mate. Glad to be back. Yeah, let's crack on with another podcast. We've got some interesting topics this week, so let's crack on.
Just speaking about the Worlds, where did you guys watch it? Because obviously time zones, especially for you, Greg, it's all over the place, isn't it? Middle of the night. Did you watch much of it?
Did see it in the middle of the night. No, I actually, there was a couple if I woke up for whatever reason during the middle of the night, I would try and find a live stream. I did manage to watch the men's road race and...
Oh, that looked hard.
The ladies... In the ladies' time trial, I watched. Other than that, it was just highlights.
How about you, Kristin? You obviously a keen eye on the women's time trial. Do you watch much of the rest of it?
Yeah, I was just trying to tune in to every race I could. It's always a fun project trying to find out exactly what country maybe you are allowed to view the championships in, because a lot of times in America they were it was delayed. And, by then you already know the results. And so, of course, I was trying all over every map to try to break into what was the geo-restricted. So that was part of the project. And then, I followed as much as I could. It was great.
And obviously with Chloe in the time trial, just talk us through, what was that like being other side of the world, watching her, just dominate? You must have been, nerve-wracking in a way, but after... half distance, were you full of confidence or are you still nervous? What was that like?
Yeah, I have to say that being a coach of Chloe Dygert and having to not be over there with her was quite difficult. She had a couple people that were definitely in support of her, and so that was really nice. But at the end of the day, it was hard sitting and not feeling that you were part of that, except for from a distance. And so it was nerve-wracking, especially because the speeds that were happening on that course and the technicality and the wet roads, it was always kind of that on edge. And I was getting text messages from the car and, people were just like, oh my goodness, I barely can actually watch this from the car because it was just so on edge. And, it was just a super proud moment. There was just a lot of hard work. And so there was just so much... almost just, when you have that relief, whether it's a college exam or a big project at work or, a big race as a coach, you just feel like, we did this. And so it doesn't always end in that story, that fairy tale ending. But we had a great World Championships.
The US did, as a nation, the US and the Dutch, incredible from the juniors. Obviously, good for the future. And we obviously had the G2 juniors come in and race on Zwift. Quinn Simmons and what was the young girl's name called again?
Megan Jastrab.
That's the one, Megan. Sorry. Those guys, the way they race, they were so aggressive. A lot of, and in a completely positive way. The way they jumped on Zwift. Megan, for example, in a Zwift race, literally attacked from the line and never saw again. Just really, really aggressive, exciting races to watch. Certainly going to go far. And Megan was first-year junior. Yeah,
Megan is quite the talent, not only on the road, but also she was brought up on the track. And, she's always been an amazing talent. She's somebody that once she is of age, she'll step into that women's team pursuit program in January and do that first World Cup in Milton as well. And hopefully, obviously, make that World Championship team and be on that team for Tokyo. She is a talent, and I just love sometimes when juniors, such as Megan or Quinn, no one stopped them yet. And so to me, that aggression is something, it's just instinct. It's how you feel. And a lot of times throughout your career, if you aren't on programs or aren't coached by coaches who are supportive of that, sometimes people put the reins on too much and that instinct and aggression goes away. So I just love seeing that Megan and Quinn, that they're racing like they are.
I think a special mention has to go to the young fella who finished third also for the American juniors. I watched a replay of that race. That young fella, he doesn't even realise how strong he was. He was just on the front, setting it all up for Quinn. He kept on the front. He chased everything down. He went away in breakaways. And then he was just the strongest man standing at the end of the day, and he picked up the medal left for the sprint. It was just And then he's only first year junior. He's got another year left. It was just unbelievable how strong that kid is.
Yeah, they have quite the depth in the junior U.S. men's program right now, and I think it's fun to see. And they were racing together just a few weeks prior to that, where some of the juniors on the team were actually able to get the KOM, spend some days in the yellow jersey. And so I think that over the month of September, they were all able to share some success. And so I think that's one of the biggest reasons why a lot of times you come to a World Championships and you come from different trade teams and you don't seem to work seamlessly together. And I think that supporting one another through the month of September really helped the junior men come together as a team and support one another, no matter who was on the top step of the podium.
Yeah, Magnus Sheffield, that was the other American rider. And
yes.
one point in the middle of the race where you had 3 American riders, first, second, and third, just on the front drilling it, obviously on restricted junior gears. They were pedaling their arses off, and they just split the group. I mean, the guy in fourth couldn't hold the wheel, and at one point you had those 3 American riders literally riding off the front. And, I guess for a split second, you're thinking, God, could these guys just ride away? Of course they didn't, because they had a peloton, a reduced peloton behind that did get organised. But that, strength and depth in the American junior squad, pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's fun. I think that every World Championships, it just, you see different countries. I remember, I feel like a lot of years it's, you have the Dutch, and you have years where you've seen the Italians be on top. And so it's fun to see different nations mixing it up. And so, it's been a while since I think the Americans have been, so dominant in a World Championships.
Yeah, what's good to see as well is just members of the public commentating, having kind of some small interaction with some of the pros that come into the Zwift house, just how normal these riders are. That went for Chloe and every bike rider, Quinn. They kind of come in the Zwift house. And I don't know what people expect with these role model kind of famous cyclists, but of course, they're just normal. And at the end of the race, they want a beer. And obviously, Harrogate, end of the World Championships, is full of bike riders letting their hair down at the end of the season. But coming towards the end of the season, I guess at the end of the world, you've got different riders on different agendas, aren't you? You've got some guys who haven't quite finished racing yet. I guess you've got Lombardia left. I know Michael Valgren, who's obviously 6th in the men's road race, he's still training for Lombardia. You've got some riders who are just, right, that's it, completely switch off, have a load of beers and start the off-season. Bit of a funny time of year.
I'm sure you probably had some guys that had switched off before they even came to Worlds too. It's like been a long season. There's like a circuit that's not suiting me. It's just pouring down. Right, you know what? Which is actually, it's only really happens in a situation when, nations don't have very strong cycling numbers. You would never see in someone, or you'd never turn up yourself if you weren't there for the job at hand. You would never take someone else's spot. But I think it's like you said, like Lombardia. I mean, it's still a huge bike race, still a monument. There's still there's so many races coming up that it's not all over. Okay, it's an end. It's a culmination of you have your newly crowned world champion, but mate, there's still a ton of bike racing, and there's still a ton of contracts up for grabs too.
Yeah. And speaking of those contracts, for some people who haven't got their contracts yet, have left it really late. Yeah, fighting for those contracts. And neo-pros, I mean, what about the Dutch rider who won crossed the line first in the under-23s? Savage, poor chap, obviously crossed the line, put his hands in the air, and then got disqualified. The only saving grace, I guess, for him, in my mind, is he has got that pro contract. He is going pro with, I guess, Sunweb. But still, that's tough, right?
Mate, that was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my bike riding career. He came back through the cars. Every single bike rider on the planet, professional bike rider on the planet, has come back through the cars. That's what happens. You stop for a pee, you come back through the cars. There's a crash, you come back through the cars. Every driver in the convoy has paced a rider back on at some stage of their career. And now in the UCI, I want to pick out one person. It happened 100 times in the World Championships. 100 different occasions. They could have disqualified the whole peloton at some stage. And they're going to pick this one fella to go, oh no, he used the cars to come back. Of course he did. That's part of the trade. That's part of the tricks. You have to learn how to ride in the convoy. Firstly, safely, but you have to use it to your ability. That's one of the tools that you use as being a professional bike rider. It's ridiculous. And here's the UCI. I'm getting fired up about this.
I know.
Here's the bloody UCI. Here's the UCI worrying about bloody sock height. You can't have your socks. I mean, just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I just can't believe it.
Yeah, I like hearing your passion on that, Greg, because there's so many pros, really experienced, established pros that took to Twitter to say exactly the same as you and kind of, back that young Dutch rider. Yeah, savage to see. And obviously he was in tears, as you'd expect. That could well be the only chance he'll ever get to wear the rainbow stripes, because now he's pro and in the elite categories. Very, very few riders get to be world champion.
I'm just so passionate about I know how hard it is to win a world title. You know, it's and what it means. And to have that, and the other stupid, they tell him an hour after the race. I mean, he's already made the selection, so he's had an impact on the race too. So he's helped, whether he helped force the split. So it's just on every single level, it makes no sense, and it just blows my mind that here's a guy in the start of the time trials measuring bloody sock height, and then they can't get it right with he came back through the cars. Well, so did probably 150 others.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but saying there's a lot of riders going pro and stepping up from that amateur to pro ranks on the men's and the women's side. A young British rider, Eleanor Backstead, I think she's 5th in the juniors. She's going world tour on the women's side. Big steps up, in terms of distance, but also style of racing. I know you've spoken about it before, Greg, but the pro men's, especially the style of racing, it's just kind of a big ramp in it. How would you describe that? Because a lot of people were interested in that at Harrogate.
Well, the thing is, you think so Quinn has signed with Trek, yeah. I mean, that's junior racing to senior, world tour racing. It's I mean, they're going to have to, obviously, I mean, I don't know the full protocol on how they stagnate someone but you can't just throw them in the deep end. It'll just about end his cycling career because it's just a different world. The distances, for example, your average is 200 to 220k race. They're long days in the saddle. When you're a young kid, your body can't handle that very well at all. And then the speeds, the racing's done so different. You have the first hour of a world tour race is flat stick, and then we calm down for 3 or 4 hours, and then it's just a ramp test for the last hour and a half to the finish. Whereas typically amateur racing is the other way around. It's flat stick at the beginning, and it's sort of last man standing, and a lot slower the last hour. So it's going to be a massive. Yeah, it's going to be a massive shock to the system, that's for sure. It's fantastic, and I'm sure these professional teams now, they can see the way pro cycling's changing. It's the young guys are actually the ones that are very, very, they can really compete. You could never compete as a kid back in my day as a professional, at the same level as the experienced World Tour riders. But now, the professional teams, they're getting in early, they're picking up the talent early, and I'm sure they'll nurture them and they'll look after them so that they do progress in the right direction. And as long as they look after their health and their well-being, you'll get some very, very talented and successful bike riders out of it.
Yeah, well, the key thing obviously, as long as he's got that team around him to advise him. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how he does progress. And just thinking about young athletes going pro young, I've been watching a bit of the athletics World Championships. And you've got these 3 Norwegian brothers. I don't know if you've heard of them or followed them. The Ingebrigtsen brothers. And basically one, Jacob, is the youngest. He's 17. I think he might be 17. Maybe he just turned 18. And then one of the mid-20s and one late 20s. And all 3 are competing in the senior champs. I think the youngest guy, youngest Jacob, he was the youngest ever person to win the European Championships at 17, and now he's competing in the Worlds, and he came out saying, I'm probably going to peak between 19 and 22 because I've been training full gas for the last 10, 15 years at the same level as older guys like my brothers. And I guess that's, it's just a risk of, you potentially burning out, but if you've got good people around you, it's possible. I mean, look at Remco Evenepoel. His name's obviously been bandied around so much as kind of like, obviously how impressive he is, but he's maybe one in, I'm not saying 1 in a million, but he's a very rare breed. He can do it. You just wonder, can all these other riders do it, or is it potentially going to be pro too early, have too hard a life? I don't know.
I'm actually stoked that Remco didn't win the individual time trial. I know it's gonna probably annoy a few people, but I just think okay, if you looked at the men's time trial field, in all honesty, it was pretty weak. It was definitely not your usual stacked time trial field. But I'm so happy that an actual specialist time trialist put over a minute into the next place person, which was Remco, and it shows this is how good our time trialing at that level is. For a young kid to come along and he's never ridden that distance before, and to come along and get second, fantastic result, don't get me wrong, but if he'd have won that, if he'd have put whatever time into Rowan, it would just bring too many questions to our sport again. And I hate to say it, but it's a truth. If they're already talking a little bit about Chloe Dygert, they're going to talk about Remco. If he's put a minute into, or what if he's beaten Rowan Dennis, this 18, 19-year-old kid, it's going to bring too many questions to the sport again. So that's the only reason I'm glad he didn't win. I'm glad that a pure time trialist put a lot of time into him, because that's the level at which experienced time trial riders would ride at. Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah, man. That's your view. Makes sense. Yeah, on the men's time trial, it's interesting to see, like, Roglic just didn't have any legs, did he? At the Vuelta, he was obviously super, super strong. Time trial didn't have it. Road race pulled out. And it goes to show what a fine...
He was sick, though.
Yeah, why was he? He was ill.
Yeah, he was sick, yeah.
Yeah, and again, that's
He got crook after, yeah.
It's...
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Cool. That's about it for the Worlds. Obviously, a great week. Kind of the all cycling eyes was on Harrogate. It's a shame about the weather, of course. And that weather, literally, it was absolutely bouncing off the roads. For the men's road race, it's probably the worst it was all week. And the weird thing, as soon as it finished, literally within half an hour, kind of it all dried up and the sun was out.
No way.
Yeah, it was savage.
Hey, what about just quickly the big massive explosion of Van der Poel? Like, wowee! Didn't we just, the last podcast I was on, the mystery question was bonking. So obviously Van der Poel didn't listen to our podcast.
Yeah.
He exploded. There was a massive crater where he went, wasn't there?
Yeah, you can imagine what his body's going through there. I mean, is it on the last lap? 1 lap to go, wasn't it?
Yeah,
there, like
10Ks.
And literally, bam, lights went out, and yeah, obviously no coming back from there. And you've seen him he's on the wheel, wasn't he? And like his body's starting to rock. You can see he's fighting, and then he just knew, I have nothing left to give. Boom, I'm done. Sit up. Boom.
And it can happen, like we talked about, it can happen within 2 kilometres. So 2 kilometres prior to that, he was probably feeling fine.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, he's gone, hang on, I don't feel, I'll have a little drink and a little something to, oh, that's not done anything. Oh, boof, gone. It happens so quick.
Yep, absolutely. Got to keep feeding the fire, keep stoking that fire.
That was the whole thing with that race, though. It was just, I spoke to a few of the guys, and they just said it was just hard from kilometre zero. It was just because of the weather, the terrain, up and down. You were just on the pedals. There was none of that, 3 or 4 hour lull where you could take on some fluids and some food. It was just hard all day, and you could just see everyone that came across the line at the finish. They were just dead man walking, weren't they?
Yeah, you struggle to see that. And watching the race live on telly, you struggle to appreciate that, because you see a group of riders all strung out as they always are, generally head down. And it's hard to appreciate, the power they're riding at and the effort they're making from the TV. But you're right, whenever you've seen them kind of go past you live, there's a lot of sad faces, a lot of riders wishing the race was over or their season was over. Because it's, I guess when the weather's like that, there's say 150, 180 riders start, whatever it is. There's probably 30 who are there to race, and then the rest of them there do a job and just get through the race.
Exactly that. As sad as that sounds, but the good thing, well, not the good thing. I said it once when I did that Milan-San Remo in the snow and ice. I said, yeah, it's an amazing bike race, but unfortunately today for Milan-San Remo, there's only 30 people racing today because you're actually only 30 people capable of performing in that extreme weather. So anyway, it was still a fantastic race.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we know, Kristin, that Chloe didn't use a power meter for the time trial. Did she use it in the road race?
Yeah, she did use it in the road race. And obviously the road race, there's obviously regulations for women, just like there are for men, which are basically what is the maximum kilometers that women can ride. And so both on the time trial and the road race, they hit the maximum. So 30 kilometers is a max a woman can race in the World Championships time trial. And then 150 kilometers is what the women did, which is the longest World Championship to date. Just a few years ago, it used to be 140 kilometers. So they're increasing that time on the bike for women. I obviously am an outlier when it comes to when women are coming out these days and saying, we want to be equal to men. And I'm saying, hey, why don't men want to be equal to women? Because to me, a 3 to 4 hour race is pretty exciting. I really, really enjoy the shorter races when the men race shorter races on the tour, just ever so often. And so when you start getting races up to, 6 and 7 hours in length, it not only does it take the spectators away, but it also diminishes the field for who can actually really finish. And so, Chloe, after the race, when she ended up fourth, she was a lot like Megan and Quinn, where she took risk. I love how she just raced and everyone's like, where is she going? And it's like, well, she probably could have been conservative, and maybe if she wouldn't have tried, possibly she would have medaled. But in Chloe's mind, she thought, I don't want to go to the line with Van der Breggen or Spratt. I don't want to go to the line. I haven't raced against these two women, and why can't I try? And so they were finished. Obviously Lizzie got dropped, and people were not, working together. But Chloe says it was 15K too long, and I'm like, of course, because that's when you blew up. And so it's always that much too long when you blow up. And so I think that a 4 hour race was a long time, and they were very fortunate that it wasn't a wet race. They got really, really lucky. But obviously that first climb, it completely, people, I've heard a couple interviews where they say, the race without radios and it was boring, and, because there was a break up the road. It's like, that wasn't a break, that was attrition. The rest of the field couldn't hang on. It wasn't a blatant, like, let's make a break and not chase our countries down. It was basically Van Vleuten went, and the last women standing on top of that climb are the ones who are in that separation. And so I think it's...
Exactly. It wasn't a break. It was
not
separation.
A break.
It was like you either made the split or you didn't make the split.
Absolutely. See, bingo. And so, yeah, and then obviously if I were in that race and, I had the experience that Lizzie has, I would have been communicating with the entire group of 8 other than Van der Breggen saying, hey, let's work together. But instead, on TV, you can just see the frustration where she would get up and she would just pull really, really hard and get frustrated, and Chloe would go through, and it was just kind of it wasn't a true effort. And so people look at like Van Vleuten, oh, how did she keep 7 people chasing? I'm like, tell me when 7 people were chasing. Never. There was never 7 people like chasing together. It just wasn't organized. And so that was the fault of that group. And to me, that group was going for silver. If you want to go for the win, you're going to work. And if you want to close that gap and have it come together and be a group of 9 with Van Vleuten in it, then you work together, and hopefully by the last 40K, you're all together, and then you can rest and eat and drink and do everything you need to do. But when you want to win, you have to put in the work as well. And I don't care what status you are. The only person that shouldn't have worked is Van der Breggen.
Yeah. I think if I was in that break, I would have done exactly as you said. Try and be really vocal, try and motivate and get everyone to go through. But I probably would have tried to encourage everyone to ride single file, almost like a team time trial formation. Just do your bit on the front. Because the problem is with chain gang, every cycle, so every, say, 30, 40 seconds, you've got a choice to make. Do I follow the line through and do another turn, or do I try and skip a turn and save my energy and play cat and mouse? When single file, you get to the front, you've got to do a turn. All right, you might do a slightly shorter turn, but you're gonna contribute. And I just think if you got those 7 girls in one line, being really efficient, they could have rode they could have brought it all back together for a really exciting last couple of laps. But he who dares, isn't it? He who dares wins.
I mean, they were in a perfect situation, really. If you look at it, I'd have been bloody licking me chops.
Yeah.
It's 7 of us away. I'd have absolutely just hold Annemiek at whatever time. You can ride like that for 60k if you want, just keep her there. And then, but yeah, absolutely, be vocal, make the commitment. Righto, guys, now we close the gap. She's tired. She's been out there for 60k on her own. We've got the massive advantage over her now. Surely we have. And let's close it. They just had to have some leader in the bunch or someone with this being vocal, like you said, and just like, right, make a game plan. This is how we're going to catch you. Then we can reshuffle and race. The girl there that was actually in the winning seat, should have been in the winning seat, was Van der Breggen. And, it was the reason she didn't win again this year was because the other girls didn't roll through and ride together as hunting the gold medal. They were racing each other for the silver.
Yep.
Yeah. It's amazing what just that little bit of motivation can do. Because obviously, with 50k to go, everyone's tired. Everyone's really tired. You got 100k in the legs. The legs are hurting. Morale starts to dip a little bit as you see the gaps not coming down. But that belief, if someone's the leader in that group, it can count for a lot. And the same goes in Zwift racing. If someone's got a bit of a gap and someone's there typing away on the keyboard, come on guys, let's work together. It does give you a lift. It's amazing what that can do. That kind of the psychological side. Obviously, the brain's a big old muscle.
Yeah, so I always say, I told Chloe, the biggest pat in the back was you didn't settle for second. You just went for it, and it's bike racing. One day she'll end up winning. One day she'll end up maybe getting second, but she's off the podium, which is always a hard place to be. But obviously, if she sat in and didn't try, that would be a bigger regret, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So, got a couple of Zwift updates anyway, and these have come from the Zwift forums, a very reliable source. Good old John Mayfield posts every time there's an update, he posts about what's going on, and there's two main things included within this update that I want to touch on. The first one is this prototype steering feature. So literally, you can steer your Zwift avatar in game by using your phone mounted on your handlebars. So I haven't given this a go yet. Have either of you?
Not yet.
No, I've read about it, but I have not tried it. I'm quite fascinated.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of, fascinated is the right word. But so to access this new steering feature, you basically got to run the Zwift Companion app on your phone whilst running the game on a different device. So for me, I've got my laptop set up, and then I'll have my phone on the Companion app. And then you need to ride through the new course that's just been released, Titan's Grove on Watopia. And at some point, apparently, there will be a secret intersection. Basically, you take that turn and follow the instructions on game, and then Zwift does its magic and uses the accelerometers in your phone to detect steering movements. And then you basically take a short off-road section, and off you go. And this is this kind of steering feature is something they've called one of their future works features, which is basically early access and experimental features. So they may change, disappear, or need extra validation before being fully fledged and part of Zwift. So super exciting. I'm definitely going to give it a go at some point. And for those who are a bit skeptical, no, John's kind of called out and said, don't worry, it's not going to be mandatory for riding on Zwift, all the training or other formats. It's just going to be an option, is how they see things at this stage. So steering, massive game changer, and equally, maybe not equally, but another big change is different wheels and tyres in game now have different rolling resistances based on the surface you're riding on. So, for example, if you're on a mountain bike or gravel tyre, it may be the best on the jungle circuit, while a road or TT bike is the fastest on tarmac. So it's not a case of, time trial bikes are the fastest on everything, or the Tron bike is the fastest everywhere. Even tyres now and wheels, I think wheels always have had kind of the nuanced attributes, but tyres, a disc wheel designed for pure speed on tarmac will not necessarily be the fastest through the jungle where it's dirt and roads and that type of stuff. So just, an example of where Zwift is really getting into the detail and making the experience even more lifelike.
Yeah, I can't even guess what's next. I mean, I would have never imagined, just a few years ago when I started riding Zwift that it would get even to this point. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. When did you guys start Zwifting, by the way? 'Cause I was early, I think it's January 17. So
I was December 16.
Had me by a month.
It was my Christmas present.
Oh, cool.
I was actually one of the first. I found, because I was always been a massive ergo fan, and I was always looking for any sort of platform that I could use. So I reckon way back in 2015, I was riding Zwift right back in. I had a crack on it in its beta version, actually. Amazing. I was one of the original beta riders, yeah. So and that's when I got involved with Zwift, because I think they can see who the pros are that actually that buy into the new technology early on, and I was obviously one of the names there as a professional rider using it.
So in the very early days, Greg, did you heard about Zwift and went out and contacted them, or did they contact you?
No, they contacted me. Absolutely. They and they don't advertise or anything like that with professionals, as you know. So, and it's amazing how many pros in the peloton now use Zwift as a training tool. But no, they saw, and they must have seen it. I've been using it for a number of months and regularly. And I got contacted by Steve Beckett, actually.
Cool. Yeah, similar story with us. I mean, Danny actually, heard about Zwift and seen someone else on it, got in contact. We got a setup in the house, and then I got hooked on that. And then we suddenly realised we both wanted to ride at the same time, and we're both fighting over one setup. So then we went out and bought another one. So now we've got, like a lot of couples, I'm sure, got two Zwift stations next to each other. We rarely Zwift together, but when we do, that's pretty cool to be able to do it. Anyway, moving on then. As always, the Zwift community, fantastic. We all love you. So just one little shout out or acknowledgement from something we picked up on Facebook. So this is Keris Willoughby, and Keris done a Zwift Academy ride and was speaking about her experiences in game. At which point there's a bunch of questions about her. So Keris decided to share her story through the Canyon SRAM Zwift Academy Facebook group, and Keris basically said that Zwift has been a lifesaver for her, and has given Keris an effective way to train post brain injury, and being an effective way to keep fit with a sense of accomplishment, doing things that she never thought possible, such as winning races and climbing mountains. So again, Zwift there just being a massive enabler, but also Keris mentioned the sense of belonging that the Zwift gives and the Zwift community, thanks to how positive, welcoming and supportive the Zwift community is. So we all play, and you all play, a small part in making the Zwift community what it is. So good job, everyone.
Yeah, I really enjoy the community stories that come up and are shared with us, because it just seems like there are just so many stories in the Zwift community, and they're so impactful to other people, because sometimes when you're struggling or you're trying to recover from whatever it may be in life, you feel quite alone, and the Zwift community is just another support group that is just an amazing group to have, especially for people who love riding bikes. And we all like to kind of have that kind of option, no matter if it's exercise or it's having a group to just have coffee with or hang out with. And I think the Zwift community provides so much more than just a bike ride.
Yeah. As we heard a couple of episodes ago, when there's a couple that met through that ride on and ended up getting married. That was cool.
That's taken over the top.
Yeah, absolutely. Terminology then, guys. Greg, I think you're about to put Kristin under pressure here, aren't you?
Yeah, you might need a translator, or phone a friend, or Google.
Is this English language or what?
One.
Okay.
All right, well, I'll get on the timer. I'll start when you're ready.
Righto, Kristin, the term I have for you is bag of spanners.
Is what? I'm sorry.
Good start.
Are you for real? Wait.
It's a bag of spanners.
I can't even understand what you're saying.
Bag of spanners.
Bag of
spanners.
Can
I thought you worked in a
You have
hardware
to
store.
You just spell that last piece of bag of something.
Bag of wrenches.
Spanners. Bag of wrenches. You might call them wrenches.
I don't call them any of that.
This might be a European. Oh no, you're not European. No. Right, we'll see what Google,
So
Google
is
comes up
that
with.
is 30 seconds up?
Yes, 30 seconds. You know what? though?
Seriously, I'm just
Google won't give you anything.
I feel I have no chance. Wow, I feel like a failure right now.
If I said I was climbing like a bag of spanners, would that mean nothing? Would that mean nothing to you? I'm
Nothing.
climbing like a bag of spanners.
Absolutely nothing. Like I still, even when you give me in a sentence, nothing.
Oh, that's interesting.
Absolutely.
Rowe, can you answer that?
Okay, I'll give it a go. Basically, bag of spanners, bag of poop. We're just feeling horrific. So if you're going like a bag of spanners, you're going really badly. After a race, someone asks you, how do you feel? If you had bad legs, you're going like a bag of spanners, just, not where you want to be.
That's exactly
bag
right.
Bag of
Yep.
spanners.
AKA creeping.
Creeping, yeah. So what would you call that, Kristin?
Well, what would I call that?
Going badly.
I would probably just say it how it was. Like, just feeling like shit today.
Well now, Kristin, you can use I'm going like a bag of spanners.
We don't have this lingo. Like, I mean, New Zealand, I mean, it's just a different language. We just say it how it is in America.
Brilliant.
Bag of spanners. I can't even say it. It
There
doesn't
you
even
go.
sound good because I don't even have the accent you have.
You have to drop that into your local group now, Kristin, and see if they pick up on it or not.
You know, I'm a competitive person, so all I can say is I can't wait for the next terminology opportunity.
Me too.
Oh, challenge.
Me too.
Challenge has been laid.
Brilliant. All right then. We haven't done this for a while, but return of the quickfire question. So, if it's cold outdoors and you've got to go training, you and your mate only have one set of overshoes and one set of gloves between you. This is a weird situation, but run with it hypothetically. Which do you go for? Cold feet or cold hands? I.e., which bit of kit do you give to who?
I would take the gloves 100%.
Yeah, I would go with gloves. I would go with cold feet.
I'd be the opposite. I'd go for cold hands because I don't know why. In a weird way, quite like cold hands. But when my feet go numb, I feel like I can't pedal and it's horrific.
Yeah, at least they go numb. I mean, like I have that Raynaud syndrome in my hand, so yeah, I'm done when my hands always go first.
Same. Absolutely. I just about cry like a schoolboy when my hands get that cold. It's like people say, oh, the hands go numb. It's good when they get too cold. They go numb. You can't feel them. I'm like, can't feel them. I'm in that much pain right now. So I mean, in my kit bag, it was always like the teammates used to laugh at me because I would literally, and this is no joke, I would have 10 sets of gloves of different thicknesses and thermals and waterproof and all different for different scenarios. Of weather for cold weather riding. My hands were just atrocious.
And you know when your hands are too cold when you can't change gear. And even with Di2, I mean, if you can't change your Di2 electric gears because your hands are too cold, you need to get in a cafe and warm up. That's kind of going too far. But
that's too far.
Bit of a chill. I'd much rather my hands be cold rather than my feet. Because I find if whichever it is that's getting cold, by obviously wiggling them, moving them, you can warm up a little bit. I just think, for me,
Heinrich Hausler, he just never wears glove ever.
Yeah.
Like it can be snowing outside. As an old Heino, he just doesn't put gloves on. He just doesn't feel cold hands. It's ridiculous.
So then, is that hard as nails or daft, stupid?
I just think he's physiologically gifted.
Yeah, but some people do that. It's like go out without overshoes on or without gloves on. This is a kind of like a sign of being macho and being hard, but it's kind of pretty dumb, right?
But I mean, if you don't feel it, like you can't fake cold hands, or if the hands are frozen, you can't pretend they're not. Well,
Yeah, you can't
I
shift.
couldn't.
You can't shift your
my
bike.
hands are friggin' frozen right now.
I'm sure there's people out there whose hands are genuinely freezing, and you ask them, "God, your hands must be cold," and they say no to have like that badge of honor. That happens.
Oh god, bugger that.
Yeah.
They can have that badge.
There we go. Q&A then. Questions. This question is long. I'll have to try and paraphrase this. Questions from Alan, anyway, that was sent in via the Zwift forum. So, Alan, thank you for your question. I'm going to try and paraphrase this question a little bit. All good, great background. And if you have got a question, feel free to spell it out at length on the Zwift forums, and we will pick it up and address it on a podcast. But Alan's question reads: he's basically raced in real life on the amateur scene in Ireland for a couple of seasons. His races tend to be 60 to 70 miles long, and then he does a couple of lower key 20-mile races. He often cramps in his hamstrings and quads, often both, at around the 50-mile mark. And he's listened to our earlier podcast discussing cramping, and he thinks his nutrition and hydration are okay. He drinks regularly on the bike, so he thinks the cramping issue is simply kind of due to going beyond his means. So over the winter, he has 4 1-hour slots to Zwift in the week and a longer weekend ride where you can get a longer endurance ride in. What would our advice be to prepare for those longer 60-70 mile summer races? And are there any Zwift plans that we'd recommend to help him? Let's kind of throw it out there. Just to recap on that: 60-70 mile races in the summer, suffers with a bit of cramp, can train for a good amount of training, 4 hours in the week, 4 times 1 hour sessions in the week, and a long endurance ride. So through the winter, guys, how would you use that time to hit summer cramp free?
I think the one thing that's very accurate there is the one thing we do know about cramp is that it is your muscles being pressed or pushed to a stress level that they're not used to. That's the reason you cramp. At the end of the day, your hydration can be perfect, your nutrition can be perfect, but you will still cramp if you exceed what your muscles are used to doing. So he's spot on there. There's no question. That's exactly what happens with cramp. For me, I think his limited time on the trainer, I think I'd want to spend a lot more time around. I think that good old sweet spot training is what we call, bang for buck. You're going to get the most gains in that short amount of time, in that 1 hour. So I would be doing up to that 1 hour in your sweet spot zone. Okay, sure, we can vary and we can take 5 minutes rest here, and it might be 20 minutes on, 5 minutes easy spin, 20 minutes on. But I would just suggest some sweet spot stuff, or some, that high zone 2 area where you you're burning a lot of calories, you're putting a lot of pressure on, and it's a long, solid tempo ride. I think that we know that facilitates mitochondrial density. We know that is your energy system. That's your powerhouse of your muscle cells. So if you can increase that density, you're going to have more energy to actually convert to ATP, which is your energy fuel. So that would be my suggestion: is try a little bit of sweet spot training on at least one of those sessions, along with your long weekend rides. Yeah, good one. And again, we don't really know what type of rider Alan is. He's a sprinter, climber, whatever. But two riders I've started recently working with this year. One thing they don't suffer with is their endurance, and what their weakness is their sprinting. And I would say it's very rare that you get to come to the finish line on your own and put your hands in the air without sprinting. So everyone, I think, should do some sprinting at some point, even just to become a better sprinter than you are. And it's good fun as well, and you can kind of see a real kind of you can see a sprint improve. So one thing I've started doing, and I think, Alan, I'd probably recommend this to you, is maybe choose one of those hours and do some sprint work. Or you may do it out on the road. And one is to develop your sprinting power, but also just that technique and the coordination. I mean, you've spoken about it plenty of times, Greg, about that kind of neuromuscular coordination, getting your whole body singing off the same hymn sheet. Because sprinting isn't just about just stomping on those pedals. It's about getting your body position in quite an aggressive kind of low aero position, but also just kind of the whole flow of your body, the way you swing your bike left to right. That takes getting used to, and that takes training.
So to suddenly hit the start of next season, having not sprinted for God knows how long because you don't want to be a sprinter, I would say that's probably not the best idea. So just adding on to what you said there, Greg, about a bunch of sweet spot stuff, in the week, getting your long ride on the weekend, getting some sprinting done somewhere. And if you want to, take it back to Zwift, FTP Builder is never a bad way. That's always a good place to start. Perhaps you use the advanced FTP Builder. You sound quite an advanced cyclist and Zwifter. So you use the advanced FTP Builder. And of course, that's obviously based on your current FTP. So even if you've done that before and you've kind of progressed since, it's still going to be relevant. It's still going to hit all the right spots. And there is a chunk of sweet spot work in there. Yes, that's kind of my bit. And just, in fact, you mentioned, is there any specific workouts that you could recommend? This is obviously, he's based in Ireland, so not too far from me. So based off UK time, 7:45 p.m. every Wednesday. You can join me, Alan. I lead a session every Wednesday. It's only 40-50 minutes. It's kind of a very varied general session that changes every couple of weeks. So join that, mate. You'll see it in the Zwift Companion app. It's the Rowe and King session that I lead. So be a pleasure to have you join. All right. Second and final question. This is from Simon, once again from sent in via the Zwift forums. And Simon says, thanks for answering this question last month. It feels a bit cheeky for asking again. No problem at all, because if you've got stuff to ask, this is the place to voice it. But Simon's question boils down to, he's asking, how am I best to train effectively? What is the best way to plan? Do I identify what I want to improve in and train specifically for that? I feel I'm just flip-flopping from session to session without any structure and being wasteful in what I'm doing. Any advice is massively appreciated. So I think what this boils down to is, a lot of people do this. Just got an hour to burn, jump on Zwift, see what session is going on, and you just jump in whatever session is happening next. What would your advice be here to periodize, kind of introduce the concept of periodization maybe, and structure general cycling?
I something that we haven't talked about is just some of the amazing options. I think so. For one thing is if someone has a coach, obviously you can take those Zwift sessions and obviously tie your accounts, and they can become the same Zwift sessions what your coach wants. Right on your own screen, right on your own account from any of the software platforms you're using. However, if you don't have a coach and you're just sort of like waking up, kind of like I do now, is wake up, I'm like, oh, what session's available right now? But if you're recognizing that you're sort of like doing a mishmash and maybe you're not accomplishing those goals, I would encourage you to really look at, it's basically like what's on Zwift.com, and you can go through and you can look at all the different training plans. And I think that if you pick a training plan that is actually, 10 weeks or 12 weeks or one of those longer training plans that are options, I think what you find is when you commit to a training plan, now you have those easy days and you have those strength days and you have the sprint days. And so it not only keeps that variety fresh, but it also allows you to not just aimlessly be waking up and saying what works for me at this hour.
Yeah, I like the idea of committing to a longer training plan, because some of the the 4-week and the 6-week plans are great starter plans, let's call them, but a 12-week plan, commit to that and see it through. You're going to see significant gains, and obviously it's all such quality as well. You speak about if you haven't got a coach, you're almost kind of if you're on Zwift and you're using Zwift properly, you almost don't need a coach. I think we're do myself out of a job there in a way, but you get so much from Zwift. You've got world-class training plans at your fingertips. If you want to develop your FTP or your climbing, or you want to prepare for a 100-mile event, whatever it is, there's stuff. Zwift is littered with options. So that website, was it whatisonzwift.com? What was that, Kristin?
It's whatsonzwift.com.
That sounds, I'm going to check that out. Just kind of simplify all the stuff on Zwift. All right, guys, I think that wraps us up today. Good to chat as always, and catch you on the next podcast.
Sounds good, mate.
Awesome. It was great chatting and catching up, and Have a great weekend.
Yeah, guys, we'll catch up next time. Right on.
Right on.